I rage blacked out when I opened the Google Doc and then had to close it again. It's fine.
Just fell back in your chair. No, I think.
How dare you guys?
Yeah, we can roll through subreddit highlights now, I think. And I'm going to say that again in a more enthusiastic way that I'll keep in the podcast, as opposed to this like dead-eyed.
I guess
that I'm in. Oh, hey Jessica. Hi.
That makes it in.
Hi.
Yeah, you can close the door. Hello, and welcome to Maester Monthly, your favorite pseudo-monthly podcast, hosted by the moderators of the Song of Ice and Fire subreddit. Now, before we begin, this podcast will be spoilers extended, which means that material from the Winds of Winter sample chapters and the entire TV show Game of Thrones is fair game. You have been warned. My name is Michael, also known as Bookshelfstud.
My name is Matt, also known as Joe Magician.
My name is Andy, also known as Jones Tony.
My name is Fat Welda, also known as Dr. Frey-Bolton.
Now, today is extremely special because we are joined by Kim Renfro, an entertainment correspondent for Insider and author of the book The Unofficial Guide to Game of Thrones. Also, she's our friend, so hi, Kim. Say hey.
Hi, I'm Kim, real person, also in air quotes.
Do you not have like a Reddit username to dox yourself with right off the bat?
Oh my god, I do. It's Merlin's Pants.
Looking this up.
Immediately banned. Straight away.
Yeah, go nuts.
From the get-go.
Yeah.
No, welcome to Maester Monthly, Kim.
Thanks for having me, folks.
So, if you want to say like a brief paragraph about yourself, about why we might care about you, why we might like even bother inviting you.
Are you a real person?
Yeah, there's a lot of rumors flying.
All of that is to be determined. We will see. I don't know who cares about me, but it's nice that you guys seem to, so thank you. So like you mentioned, I just wrote a book that came out last week called The Unofficial Guide to Game of Thrones. I don't know how many of you guys have opened it up yet, but the A Song of Ice and Fire subreddit, aka Asloff, aka it's French, got like, you guys are like in the my like introduction to the book.
Yes, it's true.
Yeah, because I discovered Game of Thrones in 2011 along with like millions of other people who were finally tuning in to the HBO show, and that also happened to be about the same time that I was like getting into Reddit for the first time. So I was like, oh, there's a subreddit for everything. There's obviously a subreddit for these books. So I went and became like a professional lurker basically in every Game of Thrones subreddit because I was too scared to actually participate in anything. But yeah, you guys were that community was like a very formative part of the reason why I do what I do today. So thanks.
Oh, man.
That explains a lot.
Yeah. I will say that shout out earned you very exclusive mod points. So
mod bucks.
You're getting close to ordering the popcorn. That's what I'm saying.
Great. Well, now you know my username, so you can throw me some gold or something.
That's right. We'll credit you.
Maybe silver. It's fine.
Yeah, I mean, come on. I'm a poor person.
I'll give you an upvote. How does that sound?
Thanks. Yeah, go find my like old terrible attempts at posting on Reddit and upvote them.
Oh, I found them.
Perfect.
That actually would have been an amazing episode, is if we just ambush you with like all of your old Reddit posts and we're like, so explain yourself on this, Kim.
Thanks.
I found this post where your kitty went missing.
I know, Phil.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
shit.
That's an adorable picture.
He came back.
It's getting real.
Yeah, it had a lot of upvotes.
I only posted about it because he came back, I think.
Farming karma on our cats.
Hell yeah. Well, that's like my like most successful post of all time is when I took a picture of a kitten that was in a bodega in New York and posted it, and like it caused all this controversy because people were like, that's disgusting, and then other people were like, have you ever been to a city? Like, that's just how bodegas operate. It was great. So yeah, highlight of my Reddit career was the bodega cat.
There's a lot of food here too. This is pretty great.
Thank you.
So everyone should check out /u/Merlin's Pants
Yes.
on reddit.com.
And then if you do that, you owe me like purchasing my book or something.
at the
like,
very least, yeah.
reparations for my terrible Reddit.
Yeah, Reddit reparations.
career.
Yeah, that's what we call those. Well, I figured before we will have subreddit highlights to talk about, because believe it or not, people are still posting on the internet about Game of Thrones and Aswath. But we did want to ask you a few cursory questions, just some normal question stuff. Nothing to worry about.
These don't sound like normal questions now, Michael.
Yeah. Now I just became immediately suspicious of these questions because you felt the need to preface them like that.
So, what's your mother's maiden name?
Social security number.
What's the like security questions for all of your bank accounts? No, so we did want to know though. When did you like transition from? When did you go? Okay, I'm gonna write a book. Like when did you flip that switch, or was it a switch or like a slow dimmer where you turn the lights on like a little bit?
Yeah, it was probably a little bit of a slow dimmer. I probably around like 3 or 4 years ago, I was just like, I was aware that writing a book about something that you're covering is a thing that reporters do every once in a while. Like, I knew a couple people at work who had written books based on things that they were covering really in depth for our company. So it was always kind of like in the background as like, people would occasionally be like, hey, you're going to write a book about Game of Thrones? So I'd be like, absolutely not. That sounds terrible. And then it was by the time that season 8 was announced and we knew that there was going to be this like 1.5 year kind of off-season period, I just kind of was like, all right, I don't really have like a big thing to do in the next 1.5 years. And we know now that the show is like definitively coming to an end. And I just thought to myself, like, okay, someone is going to write a book about this show if they haven't already, or like if they're not working on it already. And I just, for whatever reason, felt like I wanted to be that person. So it was actually New Year's Eve 2017, so like heading into 2018, my mom was like, what's your New Year's resolution? And I was like, oh, Mom, I don't know. Maybe I want to write a book. And she was like, what? And I was like, what? Like when that came out of my mouth, I was kind of like, oh, I want to write a book. And it was kind of one of those things where like, once you like say something out loud, it kind of becomes a lot more real. So yeah, by January, I got back into work after like the holidays and set about figuring out how the hell one writes a book.
Yeah, right. Now, yeah.
And then I did it.
And then you just did it. Yeah, I mean, follow-up question, what is a book? Like,
We don't
none of us can read, so it's really tricky. No, I mean, so how much of it was like you pulling together like stuff you'd already kind of researched and all that, and how much was new research that you had to do?
So I started, the first thing I had to do was put together a book proposal, which involved like having an actual outline, so like a tentative table of contents and all that stuff. And the trick with writing, at least from what I was told by my agent, because I had gotten a literary agent by then, was like, you really have to kind of like sell yourself as like the expert on this thing. So my initial proposal was a lot of existing content that I'd already written that performed really well. So I was like, hey, like 800,000 people have already read this article, and like that's probably a good indicator that like I could sell a book to a percentage of that audience or whatever. So it did start with me kind of like looking at my existing catalog of Game of Thrones related writing and seeing what I could work with from there. And then my dream was to like actually go out and interview a bunch of people involved with the show and kind of write this like really in-depth like behind the scenes thing. Unfortunately, HBO did not want to license the book to me. They already had, which like we know by now, they have 5 books coming out this year.
Jesus.
They have like 4 like hardcover kind of like coffee table like art of Game of Thrones books and like one on photography and stuff. And then they got some other guy. They already had a deal with someone else to write like the guide to Game of Thrones. So then I wound up having to do the unofficial guide to Game of Thrones, which meant that I was not able to like interview new people specifically for the book, and like I can't use photos and stuff from the show because it's not an HBO licensed product. So yeah, so then it turned into me being like, okay, what can I do outside of those parameters? And I was like, I don't know, I just kind of decided to have a lot more fun with like writing my own analysis or like essays on things that had always been interesting to me, but that I had never gotten around to writing about for whatever reason, like the pilot that was a disaster and stuff like that. So yeah, so it was a mix of stuff that I had already written and new stuff that I got to do just for the book.
Yeah, right. I feel like, I mean, I can definitely, your voice definitely comes through in the book. Like
Thanks.
when you're talking about the prank that, what was it, where they told Alfie Allen that Theon was going to die. I believe you called him like iconic or something because he went on a vacation after being told that his character was going to get killed off.
Yeah. Didn't even respond to them. Like, literally was just like, all right, I don't have a job anymore. I'm going to fucking Ibiza or something. And, like, they called him to be like, hey, like, trying to, like, get a reaction out of him. And he was just like, oh, yeah, what? Like, what do you want to talk about? So, yeah, I love Alfie Allen. He's a hero.
That might have actually been your exact words in the book.
That he's a hero?
Yeah.
Yeah, and also feel free to remind me what I actually wrote in this book, because I'm pretty sure that I, like, blacked out, and I also have no interest in ever reading a word that I wrote ever again, so...
Oh, gosh, yeah,
right. This is a nice reminder of, like, oh, yeah, I put that in the book.
Watching the writing process was something else. It was just, like, constant, like, oh, no, what's happening? Oh, no, what have I done?
Yeah, it was really, like, absolutely the hardest thing that I've ever put myself through by choice. And I'm, like, barely out the other side of it, so...
You got to do a book signing, though, right?
I did sign some books, which was fun. It was all, like, my friends and family, God bless them. I haven't had, like, a stranger be like, oh my God, sign my book, so... Yeah. But.
Well, that's why you're on this podcast.
Yeah.
We're gonna get all of our
really
fans.
Amplifying.
Is that why?
Just let us know what your address is, and we'll send the entire subreddit to your door with copies.
Or just your WeWork space, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right, exactly.
Oh, good. We'll give the entire subreddit asbestos. Perfect.
Thank God. That'll finally finish some of these creeps.
Our
The
long
crumbling
watch.
facade of WeWork will rain down upon them. And I will be there signing books.
Maester Monthly is brought to you this month by WeWork, the office space.
and asbestos.
It's the best house.
Can we do like a new spoiler scope? Spoilers asbestos?
Spoilers is best. That's for the really dangerous stuff, like the photos of Sean Bean with his actual head cut off.
Spoilers mesothelioma. It's like
Spoilers,
infinite.
you may be entitled to a...
Has this ever happened to you?
Don't.
Does anyone else?
Everybody. Actually, we could use that as a trap. Anybody that has it, we then make a post saying like, "Come in and say something," and then we ban them all. Perfect.
Wow. Why are we banning people with mesothelia? I'm really... I'm falling way off the...
We're trying not to get
Also,
sued.
If there's someone listening to this who has not been following WeWork's demise, I'm currently sitting in a phone booth at a WeWork office, and we just found out like 3 days ago that a bunch of these exact phone booths in WeWorks have like they're like coated in formaldehyde or something that's like actually terrible for your health. So it's fine. Everything's fine.
It's okay. I think it only causes cancer in the state of California.
Oh, yeah.
Perfect.
Great.
It's like very Kyburn-esque. They're slowly just trying to preserve you guys in like these weird jars full of formaldehyde.
You're thinking of Celise.
Oh, I'm sorry. The other mad
Celise
scientist,
Baratheon.
Celise.
Yeah. Well, she
True.
wasn't a mad scientist. She was just like Amish, and she just made a lot of preserves out of like
Oh, she was making jams. Ugh.
and jellies.
Jesus.
Oh.
All right.
I feel bad about that.
We are like 10 minutes into our latest recording, and we've already like hit that point.
Baby jelly.
I did also want to. Baby jelly. This podcast is brought to you by Baby Jelly. We did have one other question for you, Kit. Well, many other questions, but at least one. Were there any like juicy gossips that had to get cut from the book that you can tell us about on the podcast? No.
Yes, all the things that I legally couldn't include in this book, I can.
Nobody listens.
Could you tell us
Just
about something
use
that
air
allegedly happened? No, I mean, but was there anything that did have to kind of, like, that hit the cutting room floor and you're like, oh, that's too bad. I wish...
It was a lot of... and I can talk about this. I think it's fine. Again, like, because my book was not licensed by HBO, I had to come to an agreement with them about how I was going to cover season 8 of the show for Insider, like for my regular day job, and not have that affect my book in any way. Since they were like setting me up with interviews and like I got to go to the premiere and all this cool stuff, but they wanted to make sure that like that wasn't going to be a part of my book. So like all the season 8 interviews that I did, which some of them I was like pretty proud of and like got some good information out of like some of the directors and cast and stuff, I wasn't able to put any of that in my book. Just because again it was like after the time at which HBO and I had been having conversations about like what was going on with the book. So there's some stuff like, and this isn't juicy, I'm sorry, but like like, you know, in the series finale when Brienne is filling out Jaime's pages in the White Book, and I don't know if you guys noticed this or like saw people talking about it, but the music that's playing in that scene is the wedding music from Robin to Lisa's wedding ceremony, like way earlier in the series. And I got Ramin Djawadi to like confirm that on the record with me for an Insider interview and say that like that was very intentional on his behalf and that it was kind of his way of saying like what could have happened between Jaime and Brienne. And then I couldn't say that in my book. Like I couldn't say like, yes, that was definitively what that was. So I had to be like, some fans noticed a like similarity, but because they had, and because like I had written that section of the book before I talked to him to confirm it. So I just had to leave it as like speculation instead of being able to say like, I got Ramin Djawadi to tell me that like, so that was probably the biggest thing that I wish I could have included, but that I didn't. And there's like one aside, which is that like I couldn't get confirmation on, which was that in the earlier pilot, in that like first like scrapped version of the pilot, allegedly Sean Bean's body double was used for a flashback of Brandon Stark being strangled in the throne room. But I couldn't get anyone to tell me that on the record, and I couldn't find the source of that, but like it does look a lot like Sean Bean, but like just not. So I think I left that in the book, but I had to say like I think I might have literally said allegedly or something. But
wow. That's really interesting. So you ended up having to do a lot of allegedlys and like, oh, maybe this is that, but even though you kind of knew something.
Yeah, that's the only one that I can really think of. Everything else, if I couldn't verify it, I just like didn't. I don't know. Like my editor was really wanted me to figure out exactly how Benioff and Weiss got the books to begin with, because they were given the first 4 books and then set up this meeting with George, and I was like, I don't know. Like, but I did a bunch of like digging and like all of these like old interviews with like one of Martin's agents, Vince Gerardis, and stuff. And I just kind of I was like I'm able to surmise what happened, which is that he was like shopping around the book on George's behalf, because that was his job as someone who like was getting books and whatever's turned into TV shows and movies and stuff. But I couldn't say like this is exactly how that call went, you know. I had to just kind of like draw my own conclusions based on.
So you fan fictioned it?
I fanficked. No.
I was gonna say it was obviously a time traveler who was trying to make sure that Winds of Winter never got published.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the most evil time traveler.
Oh, man, yeah.
I would read that fanfic.
That's actually, yeah. If you're out there, fanfic writers, and I know you are, please, please put this on AO3.
The reason Game of Thrones exists is because someone didn't want the Winds of Winter to come out.
Was it the time traveling fetus?
God,
No.
it's so depressing.
It was George himself, because he released The Winds of Winter and everyone hated it, and so then he went back in time to turn it into a TV show and delay TWOW infinitely.
Wow.
Allegedly.
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 Not in Kim's book.
Oh,
Right.
my book.
Michael's new book, The Fan Fiction of A Song of Ice and Fire.
Yeah, the
with Dan and
unofficial...
Dave.
my unofficial guide to Game of Thrones, that's just like made up dialogue between all of the involved parties that would get me sued instantly.
It's true.
So it's probably a good thing you didn't do something like that.
I gotta say, everything I hear about the pilot makes me want to see it. Like, it's the room of, like, Game of
I
Thrones
know.
episodes.
Yeah.
I know. And then that just makes me more convinced that they're never gonna let us
It must be terrible.
see it. Apparently they showed it, which I'm pretty sure I wrote this in the book. Maybe I did. I know that they screened it for all of the core cast who appeared in the pilot. They were all in the same place. They were all in New York in April for the season 8 premiere. And like the night before the actual premiere, they had like a big dinner and party and stuff, and they screened the pilot episode for everybody. And not like I'm sure they were all just like drinking and having a good time anyways. But like I spoke to multiple people the next day at the party. Like there were some people that were like, "Oh my god, we like partied on the wrong night." Like they were all like so tired and probably hungover by the actual night of the premiere because they had like watched this pilot and then just like had a, you know, good old hurrah together.
Just had to drink themselves into oblivion because of that
Clearly.
pilot. Damn.
Clearly.
Who hasn't read their old work and gotten very drunk afterwards?
Oh yeah, that's me.
You're gonna crack this book open at the end of the
I
year.
literally, I brought my own, I brought a copy of it in case I needed, again, I don't remember, like there are swaths of this book that would probably surprise me if I read them right now because I was in such a like brain fog. Like the last 3 chapters, I'm like, I don't know what I said. I think I said nice things maybe about people and the show, but...
Did you sign that copy?
Yeah. To Kim. Best wishes, Kim.
To myself.
I don't know.
That'll
I think
be
that's a
my
power
next
move. Yeah.
Fog.
Right.
Yeah. But it was really, like, I think part of the reason why I barely remember precisely what I said in some of the last chapters was, like, I had, like, 2 weeks to finish the book after the finale episode.
Mm.
And I don't know about you guys, but that was a rough, like...
Oh, God.
What was wrong with that time in the
my
fandom?
God.
There's a lot of stuff going on in life.
I didn't watch it. What happened?
Oh boy. Well, let me
Yeah.
tell you. So yeah, and it's like, I don't know if you've ever tried to write some sort of like commentary on the cultural significance of a landmark television series approximately 10 days after it happened.
Oh my God.
It
Yeah.
was very hard for me to be like, okay, what can I write that I'm not gonna like regret saying in like a year, but also that feels honest to the time and to like how people are feeling and how I was feeling.
Mm-hmm.
It was hard. And I'm also like the person who's picking up this book and reading it is not going to be someone who hates the show and like never wants to think about Game of Thrones again because they thought that season 8 was so bad. So I was like, it was very hard to figure out exactly who would be reading the book and like what they would want to be saying about the show. So I don't know. Let me know when you get there if I nailed it.
I think I'm the only person who's read fast enough to get there out of the folks on the call. But
I super don't expect you to have read the whole thing.
I skimmed large swaths of it. No, I'm just kidding. It was
Should
a fog
we just
for me
start
too.
reading from page 1 right now? Just go through the whole book?
Yeah.
We have time?
This is now an audiobook.
Alright.
Yeah, this is going to be the new audiobook
This is the
version.
recording.
That's
I
right.
think that might be actual torture for Kim if we read her book to her on a Google
I
Hangouts.
Surprise!
I would like go to a different asbestos room.
You would start like licking the
kill
walls.
myself, yes.
Get the formaldehyde in my veins.
Yes.
Oh man. No,
God,
but what I
no.
was gonna say is I like those last couple chapters, and I think the book lands
you.
very well, and people should read it for the record. Like it's, I think there are some takes that really did not age well in that like horrible period of time that was like a week and a half after the show ended.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people said a lot of things that we all kind of regret.
Words were said.
I think some things didn't age well, and I think it has aged well, at least however many months it is after the finale. I mean, it's crazy. We're still only 5 months out.
Yeah.
Did we ever even do a finale episode?
We did not clone tankard that for reasons.
We'll do it.
It was honestly so rough. Like,
yeah.
I don't blame people for being burned out on it, even still. Like, and especially not in the immediate aftermath. That's why, like, Con of Thrones was really the first time since the show ended that I was like, oh, this is nice. Like, we're all having fun and, like, respectfully discoursing.
Yeah. That was refreshing for sure.
Yeah. The internet is not kind to, like, nuanced takes about the world's largest TV show. It's just, like, not the place for it.
I think you're onto something there.
Yeah.
We can just end the podcast now. That is it.
Well, being as this is the podcast hosted by the moderators of the Song of Ice and Fire subreddit, and that you have been in the past and perhaps still are under numerous alt accounts an active user of the Song of Ice and Fire subreddit. We should take some time to talk about subreddit highlights, because people are definitely still writing about Game of Thrones and A Song of Ice and Fire, and not just because they're writing books, whatever those are. No, but Reddit users are popping out here with all sorts of takes. We actually do have kind of, I'm going to put this in heavy air quotes, but breaking news for this first subreddit highlight.
Over to you, Michael.
This breaking news that we have about George R. R. Martin, who had a talk X number of days ago, depending on when you're listening to this, and he answered some questions. He was in Chicago. He was at a talk with, oh my God, I'm blanking on her name.
Eve
Ewing, thank you. And she took some questions from Twitter and multiple sources to pose to George R. R. Martin. And one of these questions was posed by Jeff.
Oh, I'm sorry, Michael. You mean she didn't take your question?
She didn't take mine either.
My question that I tagged you in.
Snitch tagged me in when you were
ruining your entire possible relationship with Eve Ewing.
No, she doesn't follow me, so I was like, this is extra embarrassing.
And now she never will.
Michael.
She also didn't ask my highly liked question about how to pronounce the acronym ASOIF, which was very disappointing to me personally.
That is. We need answers.
I do think
Aswaf cannot stand.
George pronounces everything terribly. I bet he says Aswaf.
It's possible.
That's
and I think
theory.
there's a chance he would answer this question too. Like, some questions he's definitely never going to answer, but I feel like if you catch him at the right time. But anyway, this wasn't Jeff's question. Jeff's question, what was Jeff's question? I forgot to read this.
Would George have sided, would he have supported Robert's rebellion?
And was it just?
Right. Was Robert's rebellion just? Would George have sided with the rebels? And the answer that George gave was yes, he would have sided with the rebels because Aerys, the Mad King, was a tyrant. And the catalyst for the rebellion, and this is the important part of the answer, was the murder of Rickard and Brandon Stark. But he then compares Robert's rebellion to Vietnam, and he goes on one of his lengthy muses about whether violence is ever the right answer to anything, especially in a country without a Magna Carta, which I think is an interesting take from George's perspective. But there's been this, narrative, I think, that was reinforced from the show that Robert's rebellion was built on a lie, that it's the root cause of it was Rhaegar and Lyanna, which I think some people are taking George's answer as putting lie to that perspective. Would you guys agree with that? That this is a debunking of the Robert's rebellion was built on a lie take?
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
I also would not be surprised if George is not even fully aware that that's a thing that the show tried to establish. I don't think he watches the show anymore. to be honest. I don't think that he's watched it since season 5. Like, none of his blog posts ever specifically talk about, like, a thing that happened. They're always just like, congratulations to our amazing cast, and like, okay, no, I take it back. He's probably seen he saw the season 8 premiere because he was there. But
he was doing one of these, just covering his eyes.
But he stopped going to the premieres before that. Like, he wasn't at the season 6 and 7 premieres, which was kind of weird. So yeah.
So all of his blog posts are just like trying to be part of the class discussion when you haven't done the English reading.
Yeah.
I feel called out at the moment.
Yeah, we're all like blushing.
To me, the more interesting like nugget in that answer that he gave is kind of like a theory that I've had about Dany and what I think he's trying to do with Daenerys, which is like, by backing us into her story and by having us be in her point of view, like, we're much more inherently sympathetic to her. But I think that, like, if everything goes down the way that or the way that it did in the show, not in the exact same way, but like with her ultimately like doing this like enormous act of violence against the people of Westeros once she arrives, and that being part of her downfall, I kind of think that part of George's thesis with her is that waging war, no matter how just you think the cause is not okay, and that like that's not the answer to your problems. And so the fact that he like used that question to then be like, and also maybe we should think about if violence is ever the answer to anything, like that to me is like a very like Daenerys line of like what he's doing with Dany, and like the way that she has like her whole fire and blood attitude towards people who do wrong against her.
For sure. I would say she's one of the most sympathetic POVs as you're going through it, until you get put to a Dance of Dragons and you start going, hey, Dany, what's going on in your brain there? Because these things aren't so hot. But yeah, she has probably the best cause, where it's like her family was destroyed and she's been mistreated and sold into slavery to Khal Drogo, basically. And it's like, how can you not root for her? But yeah, it doesn't justify going Aegon the Conqueror. And Aegon the Conqueror even was far less justified than Dany. And that's what even her whole claim is based upon. It's interesting that he goes that way a lot.
Yeah.
Right. And also, I mean, in the first 3 books, Dany's whole point of view is that I don't give a shit about ruling. I just want to go sit in a house and kick back all day long.
Help people.
So it's like, is this turn for her going to be part of like, well, I can't have this ideal life, so you're all gonna die. I mean, essentially, that's where he's going. Well, I wouldn't be surprised if towards the end, like her final POV or something, she's sitting there like upset and sad and depressed. Like, I was gonna have this house with the red door. I still want this. I can still have this, but Jon Snow ruins everything.
Right. Which is why, like, and I mean, I'm sorry, we can talk about this for like hours and hours, but. And that's part of why when people try and lob the criticism at season 8 of being like, oh, like Jon's parentage never mattered. Like, why did that happen? It never mattered. I'm like, no, the whole reason why she got like isolated and upset to the point where she did is because Jon was like, he was like supposed to be her person and like her like new love of her life and like the person that she could rely on. And all of that got stripped away from her largely because he became a threat to her ability to rule. And so, like, no, I don't think that we saw it play out in, like, the same emotional way that we thought it would with, like, him realizing that he was a Targaryen. But it did definitely... That felt true. It was a huge reason why she felt so, like you said, like, sitting there depressed and sad and lonely. She wouldn't have felt that way if Jon wasn't a Targaryen. Like, if Jon was Jon Snow and she still had him by her side, I think that things probably would have been different.
Yeah, that's probably true.
I also pulled up the quote from A Game of Thrones where she talks about this, where this is after the sack of the Lazarene town. She says, slaves, Dany thought, Khal Drogo would drive them downriver to one of the towns on Slaver's Bay. She wanted to cry, but she told herself that she must be strong. This is war. This is what it looks like. This is the price of the Iron Throne. Yes.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting, too, that you know, to bring it back to the Robert's Rebellion angle that was in Jeff's question, I think it'll be really interesting to compare Robert and Dany once the book series is done. It's already interesting to compare them in the show because I think Robert given that Aerys is a tyrant, Robert starts off sympathetic. Like, he and Ned are rebels with the best possible, like, casus belli. Like they are going to war for the best possible reasons. And then Robert, by the time he's on the Iron Throne, he's looking down at, like, dead children at his feet, and he's like, yeah, thumbs up, stamp of approval. Like, that's awesome. Keep going. I feel like Dany's absolutely going to end up kind of looking like the quote-unquote usurper, in a sense, by the time.
Right, but also she'll probably, inevitably help save from the White Walkers and still do good to get rid of, the Lannisters, or help the North in somehow. So it's definitely going to be, you do see it in the show. They kind of nail you over the head in that scene after the Battle of Winterfell, where they're all like, oh, Jon Snow, he rides a dragon, he does this, and, like, they are focused on Dany.
Yeah.
Like, it couldn't be more obvious. But you're going to see that in the book way more nuanced, and it's going to obviously, it'll be very, only a way you can get through either 10 more seasons or in a novel form.
Yeah. Also, to introduce another tiny tangent, so today what I was doing all day, which is why I was a little bit late for this recording, thanks for waiting, is that I spent the day, all of the season 8 scripts finally arrived at the Writers Guild library that's here in LA. So I only got through the first, like, 3.5. But yeah, that entire feast scene, first of all, there was all this stuff with Missandei that got cut. Like, Missandei and Grey Worm were supposed to be there. And Dany was supposed to, like, not only, like, be, like, watching Jon have the love of the people and whatever, but there's also a bit where, like, she tells Grey Worm, like, oh, you can go, you don't have to protect me anymore. And then, like, Missandei tries to, like, bullshit an excuse to, like, follow him and go be with him. And Dany, like, lets her, but she has this, like, little internal moment of being like, oh, I don't have a person like that anymore. Which just, again, like, would have, like, even nailed that in a little bit more of, like, exactly why she was feeling so alone and, like, bitter about the fact, like, hey, I did all this shit, like, why is no one grateful and no one loves me? Like, Jon doesn't love me anymore, apparently, because I was Ant, which is, like, fine. So.
That's kind of interesting, that whole Missandei thing, too, because, like, it's a scene from the books that they actually shot in the show and then cut, is in Meereen when Dany says to Missandei, never betray me. And Missandei is like, oh, I'll never betray you, which is obviously George being like, she's going to betray the shit out of her. But, yeah, so I don't know. It's kind of interesting to see that they still included some of that.
Right. Well, it's just like, especially, and again, like, Jorah's death was another huge part of her, like, downfall in those final episodes. So, like, okay, she doesn't have Jorah anymore. She can't trust Tyrion. She can't trust Jon. Missandei's now prioritizing her relationship with Grey Worm over, like, being by Dany's side and, like, celebrating with her and making her feel good about herself. And so, yeah, she was just completely alone, and it's bleak, man.
Damn.
Bleak.
That is bleak.
Yeah.
Wow. That's just, man, that's like taking a nose full of asbestos right there. I mean, that's really... That's painful. Well, Dany did a lot of damage with her dragon, but this is an amazing segue. Dany did a lot of damage with her dragon.
Saying it was an amazing segue.
But there have been some other Targaryen dragons in history. Matt, can you tell us about them?
I sure can, Michael.
That was such a good segue.
That was wonderful. I'm so glad he set me up like that. That was like a hanging curve. I'm just going to baseball reference this. By user Panther25423.
Oh.
I have never seen this attempted. This is a new thing on the subreddit. I was very happy to see this. They power ranked the Targaryen dragons like they were NFL teams, basically. It's every single one from Balerion to the Last Dragon. Spoiler alert, Last Dragon is apparently the worst dragon. He broke down their fights, gave them wins, losses, and draws, their size, their ability to burn things, how many riders they had, like their impact on the story. They also made an awesome infographic for this where he gave them the colorings. I didn't realize that Tyraxes was basically a camo dragon. which is good.
Camo dragon. Well, Tessarion is literally a Charizard in this illustration. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right there.
yeah.
What,
That's
and
in the
Balarion's
text.
a shiny Charizard.
Oh, good point. Well, actually, that tracks. Yeah,
That tracks.
makes sense. So, well, tell us about some of these rankings, though. I mean, who tops the charts?
Well, obviously Balarion the Black Dread, pretty much crushing it on the dragon front. Outlived many kings, killed basically everything he came up against, destroyed Harrenhal. Went to Valyria and back. That's pretty good. Survived the whatever is going on there. Probably the fireworms. I always assumed that was going on because he came back with the claws on his side. Whatever he did, he survived Valyria. Nobody does that. So Balarion's really crushing that list. Although he really only fought, it seems, one dragon. He only fought Quicksilver because nobody would challenge him. So it's kind of like in the NFL where there's a cornerback that's so good you never throw at him. Balarion would have beaten everybody, but nobody's going at him. He's too good.
Yes, it's just like that.
It's exactly. He
Just like
is
that
basically an NFL quarterback. That's my analysis of that.
Dun 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 dun.
Number 2 was Veigar.
Okay, yeah.
Also an enormous dragon. I think outlived Balarion and had a pretty good dragon battle record. I would say at 2-0-1.
Yep.
Killed lots and lots of dragons. Aemon One Eye even got to ride her, although died in that awful battle over the God's Eye. So that's kind of a downer. I mean, I don't even. Is that a draw? I guess it is. They called it a draw.
Yes. Yeah, they called it a draw because both of the dragons died, and Caraxes did make it third.
Daemon was never found.
Damon's still alive.
He's alive.
Hashtag Daemon conspiracy.
Some say he's still out there, like being
Some
really
say
creepy.
he is Jon Snow.
Who the fuck says that? I'm gonna beat them up.
I don't know, but it's out there somewhere.
I'm gonna say
Yeah.
I disagree with these rankings because you have to go to number 11 before you get to Drogon. What the hell is that? Drogon's gonna burn an entire city to the ground. Okay.
Is going
Well, it's live
to.
rankings. Yeah, exactly. Going to.
Yeah, that's like saying the Steelers
Hasn't
are
yet.
going to win the Super Bowl this year.
Oh my god, you guys, the sports are killing me.
I'm gonna keep putting in that like Fox Sports sting that Andy knows.
Yeah.
Do-do-do-do.
Bum, bum, bum,
I don't know.
Isn't
That's
it just like
fun.
literally the Pirates of the Caribbean music now, all the time? No,
Huh.
do you guys know that like dun
Yes.
dun 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 dun
Yeah.
dun
Oh,
dun
yeah.
dun dun dun?
Oh,
Isn't
true.
that like always
Dun, dun,
on?
dun.
Now I can never
NFL?
hear that.
Whoa.
We need to get one of those like NFL robots as a graphic during the podcast.
This
Like,
is how we
going-
get sued.
going across the street.
Punts
Yeah.
Rob Stark across
You
the
mean
screen or
a
something.
transformer playing
Yeah,
the Pirates of the
basically.
Caribbean theme song?
What if we have like Gregor Clegane turning into a mountain and then back into a knight with like even with the head on his thing?
Dun 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 dun. As the music,
Yeah,
just on loop. Quick fan art of Maester Monthly.
yeah. Please make fan art for
Our
us.
next week's guest is John Madden.
Is he alive?
Yeah, right?
I think so.
Him and Bernie Mac.
Where
pulling
where
everyone
is
back.
where's John Madden on the power ranking Targaryen dragon list? Is he above the last dragon? I think he could kill the last dragon.
I'd say he might beat up Morning too. Like
Yeah.
he could like punch Morning.
What you really need to do is bring Jim and John Harbaugh on and try and explain Clegane Bowl to them
To the
and how
Harbaugh.
it's all their fault.
Oh man.
Wait,
That's a
is it
great
really all
idea.
their fault?
Yeah, it is all their fault.
Yes.
So the Harbowl, this is like
Yeah.
the most sports thing that I know, is the Harbowl happened, and it was like a few months later that 4chan post arrived, and then so like Clegane Bowl, like that like nickname is because of the Harbowl, because it was going to be Clegane versus
Right.
Clegane.
dun 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 dun.
Yeah.
Anyway, I guess back to the dragons.
Yeah, throw some more dragons in here.
It goes Balerion, Veigar, Caraxes, Vermithor, Meleys, Sunfire, Meraxes.
Now, it's funny because, Balerion, Veigar, and Meraxes are obviously the dragons who conquered
Right,
Westeros.
Meraxes gets really
Yeah.
shut out on this one. He burned Dorne over and over again.
No,
Come
but
on.
He got shot.
Yeah, but I mean,
Just
like,
like Tupac.
Yeah.
wow, is he Tupac?
I think Balerion's Biggie.
Wait, are you
so-
saying that Meraxes is alive then?
That's right.
He's in Cuba.
Like Tupac?
I'm saying the CIA killed Meraxes.
Wow.
At Hellhole, yeah. The CIA branch office at Hellhole.
I mean, are you telling me that Rainey's being captured is like different from Guantanamo Bay? Because
Wow, this got political.
yeah, this is going weird places. That might get cut.
Yeah, maybe. It might.
Nope.
This is what the people
keeping it.
want from us.
We're going live. Fuck it, we'll do it live.
Isn't that what we're doing?
It is nice that Drogon beat Sheep Stealer, because, like, it would have been
True.
kind of depressing if Drogon was below the dragon named Sheep Stealer.
Sheep stealer.
The most impressive of names. What does he do? You know, steal sheep.
Yeah, I mean, come on. Like, even the other dragons who are like the wild dragons, like the Grey Ghost, like that's a
Yeah.
cool
Or the
name.
cannibal.
Right.
The
Yeah.
cannibal.
Right.
He's like, now we're moving into pro wrestling, but Sheep Stealer is like, like completely not on the same level as these other like these faces.
I also feel like the person who made this graphic was just like, yeah, it's brown dragon, Sheep Stealer. Like, doesn't, like, it has like the least interesting color
But that's how
palette.
that's how he
Yeah.
sneaks up on the sheep. I don't know.
Wouldn't
He
be
looks like the
green
dirt.
for the grass.
Sneaking.
Yeah,
He
I'm
doesn't,
saying
he doesn't roar or growl either. He baz. The dragon just walks.
Well, he should be
Sheep
white
Stealer's
then,
out
'cause,
here.
like put on like sheep
Right.
wool.
Oh yeah.
The dragon in sheep's clothing. Yes.
Wow.
Wow. All right, that's it. We're done.
Let's wrap
We're
this
not-
up.
We're never going to be better.
I'll say the most interesting coloring on this though is definitely morning. A pink dragon with black accents, I guess.
Wow, that is very late 2000s Neopets.
Yeah, I was gonna say Hot Topic.
yeah,
Or Victoria's Secret.
Very.
The pink
Yes.
with black ribbon.
Is that the sexy
Actually-
dragon?
Yeah, that's 100% a like Victoria's Secret pink
Oh my
dragon.
god, it is. Yeah, that's a little negligee dragon.
Yeah.
That's terrific. I can't stop looking at it. I got to remember to put this graphic on the YouTube version so
Yes.
that everyone can see.
And credit Panther and all the numbers after his name.
Panther numbers,
That I forgot
yeah.
already.
It's literally every number.
Every
It's literally not.
all
It's 2,
the
5, 4,
numbers.
2, 3.
It's an irrational number. It goes on forever.
the square root of two dragons.
Panther.
That's
Do we
Panther.
know Panther 7, 5,
Oh,
9?
we know every user on our subreddit personally.
Yeah,
That's
Michael's joking about the
terrifying.
CIA. We are the CIA.
Right. This
Dun, dun,
it was a
dun, dun.
very, very deep operation of infiltrating Aswaff.
Thank you for saying it correctly.
Impressed and terrified.
One thing I find really interesting about this, beyond like the power rankings and an attempt to rank dragons like this, is just that George clearly loves dragons so very much. Like he gave them all individual coloring, he gave them personality. They have like basically identical plot arcs to their writers. And then you get to A Song of Ice and Fire. It's like, what about Rhaegal and Viserion? They don't matter. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's like only in his history books does he, like, for some reason, really branch out about these dragons, except for Drogon, who he clearly loves.
Maybe it would like stress him out for them to be like their own characters too much, because then that's like one more character arc he has to like worry
That's
about.
right. Yeah.
I feel like he got to like the point where they were older and like having personalities. He's like, just the one is fine. Like, no more. I can't do any more new character arcs for things.
I kind of think I imagine Daenerys' dragons as like they're like the John Mayer trio. Like they're like the Drogon trio. Like Drogon is really the front man, and like Pino Palladino and what's his name on the drum set.
Don't look
Steve
at me.
Jordan.
I'm not helping you with this.
Pino Palladino and Steve Jordan are Rhaegal and Viserion, but and they're good, but they're just there to back up John Mayer, who is Drogon. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
See, and I
Anyway.
actually had a
You went for-
serious question.
okay,
Oh,
let's
go ahead.
change to that.
Do you ever wonder how the series would have gone if he had not decided to put dragons in?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the fantasy he puts in, except like towards the end as we get to like Bran and all that weird stuff with like Bloodraven, is a lot of it's kind of arbitrary. Like you could sub in the glass candles for a good spy network. You could sub in the dragons for just Dany getting an army sooner than she does.
But he also, I thought initially the Targaryens were going to have some sort of like pyrokinesis or something.
Yeah.
Like
He
so
does
maybe
have
it would have been more fantasy driven, where it would have been like, oh well, rather than flying on a dragon, she's making that fire dance over there.
She's
Like she is the dragon,
doing a Johnny Storm or whatever. Yeah.
right? Exactly.
From the Fantastic
The human torch
Yeah.
Daenerys
Okay,
Targaryen.
I was like, I don't understand that reference.
That was a deep cut.
Johnny Storm.
Yeah, no, I mean that is because the dragons are so integral to like the central metaphors of like power and violence and all that kind of stuff in the story. Like so much of it is really well externalized in the dragons that it's hard to imagine a Game of Thrones or Song of Ice and Fire without getting to see like dragon fire as an analogy for like the violence inherent in power. Like it's really hard to picture that, I think.
And specifically basically like nuclear weapons, that Dany's walking around the only person with nukes in a world that still has swords.
It was his friend Phyllis who convinced him, right?
Yeah.
I was gonna say I knew it was in one of the dedications to the books.
Wow, shout out to Phyllis.
Phyllis.
There you go, Phyllis. Why isn't there a dragon named after her, George?
Phyllis.
Or Phylaxes.
Oh wow, I was just about to say Phylaxes.
Whoa!
Phylaxes
Mind melds.
sounds like
Phallic.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's probably why George would do
like
it.
it's like the third head of the dragon between asbestos, mesothelioma, and Phylaxes.
That's like the evil Captain Planet version.
a store brand condom or something, but that's good too.
Prophylaxes.
Yeah, prophylaxis.
Prophylaxis.
Sorry, Phyllis.
Fuck. Yeah, Phyllis Eisenstein, we respect you a lot. That might get cut too.
No, that's staying in.
That's staying in. No, yeah, I
She's
meant
not
my
listening.
last comment.
Oh.
Phyllis Eisenstein, and we know you're out there.
After this episode, she's going to be listening.
Well, after this episode, it's going to be only Phyllis Eisenstein episodes from here on out.
Talking about dragons and Phyllis.
Right, we're going a new direction.
I feel like we do that every episode where we're like, this podcast is now about 2 Chainz or Destiny's Child or Phyllis.
That's right. Yeah, this is.
I would listen to all of those. So. You guys are onto something.
You know how there's like
follow those instincts.
You know how there's like Bernie Bros. Now I'm a Phyllis fella. Is what I
The next post that we wanted to highlight is from longtime user and contributor to the sub, Cantus. And it's actually referencing an essay that he wrote, he says about 4 years ago, concerning a brand chapter from A Dance with Dragons where he's having a vision. The moon was a black hole in the sky. Wolves howled in the wood, sniffing through the snowdrifts after dead things. A murder of ravens erupted from the hillside, screaming their sharp cries, black wings beating above a white world. A red sun rose and set and rose again, painting the snows in shades of rose and pink. And in the original essay, he had theorized that the red sun was being used metaphorically, because it was talking about the snows, and of course, snow has sort of a double meaning in the books, and especially with relation to visions. We have Melisandre talking about seeing nothing but snow, and she's talking about Jon. And then talking about the colors, pink and rose, having to do with roses, and obviously Jon has been associated with roses, or like the blue winter roses, and that sort of thing. But now he's saying that was all a mistake, and that he believes that the red sun in that vision is referring to the night lamp.
Now, what's the night lamp?
Wah, wah,
Walda.
wah, wah.
How much time do we have?
Dun, 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 dun.
So the night lamp is another theory by Cantus. Well, it's based on something that happens in the book, but essentially it's a false beacon that Stannis is going to set during the Battle of Ice. And it's based on when Davos in the book A Dance with Dragons is on the Sisters. They tell him that, I can't remember which one, it was Godric Burrell. Anyway, one of them. And they say that, they used to put false beacons to mariners thinking they're going towards a lighthouse. And really they would get, their ship would get marooned and they'd rob them and take everything that's in their boat because that's, it's a very kind thing to do. But anyway, so Stannis right now at the Battle of Ice in the Crofters Village has a tower that he's been posting up in, and there's a beacon lamp at the top. And so the theory goes that when the Freys and the Boltons and the Manderleys are coming to attack, Stannis and company, they put a false beacon up, drawing the attacking forces towards that, and they'll end up in one of the lakes and promptly drown. And so that's kind of, I think, what Cantus is saying that these passages refer to.
Right. So it's Chekhov's watchtower.
Night lamp. Night
Exactly.
lamp.
That chant almost worked. Night lamp, night lamp. Yeah.
It's honestly one of the subreddit's most famous posts, I would say.
Right.
It's the one Cantus is most known for.
It's headcanon for me. At least, obviously, for now. And, the watchtower is described in other Dance with Dragons chapters as being, a fuzzy orange glow, a faint orange glow floating in the air. So the idea that, Bran could be seeing this in his visions, and instead of being the literal sun, it is this orange orb of fiery light that is the beacon that has been lit and then maybe put out and then relit is certainly... And that it has something to do with the snows because Ramsay and Jon are going to be possibly involved
with one another.
I ship it. I mean, I think, we know from some of the novellas and some of the other visions and stuff, like I'm thinking specifically of in The Hedge Knight when, what's his name, the Targaryen has the dream about the dragon falling on Dunk at
Daron.
Daron the Drunk. And we know that visions and all that can be symbolic, like they don't have to be taken literally. So this idea, as soon as you accept that, you can start to look for all of these other kind of, well, how could this sun symbolize something?
Especially since this is Bran tripping out on weirwood paste visions, right?
Right, yeah. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but every time I have seen like a 10-year-old trip balls, they cannot correctly interpret their...
It's really a problem.
Right.
Like, get it together, 10-year-olds.
I gotta stop giving them LSD.
I mean, my son did have a nightmare the other night where he came into my room and was like, the kindergartners were trying to, enter our classroom and attack us with a chainsaw.
Oh, God.
So...
I'm imagining a bunch of kindergartners, like Voltron style, assembled into one large kindergartner with a chainsaw.
Wouldn't that be terrifying?
That's basically Attack on Titan.
That would be terrifying. I'm like looking out my window now. Like,
right, the kindergartners are coming.
Yeah.
With their big chainsaw.
Yep.
I think the other thing that I really like about this from Cantus is that not only are the visions often symbolic and you can't really tell what they're going to be, but George very often likes big battles or large losses of death to be symbolized in dreams somehow. Like the Red Wedding for a long time was echoing outwards. Somebody wrote something about a dreamscape and ripples in it.
Oh, who could that be?
Who wrote that one?
Who could that be?
Somebody on this cast wrote that post. But anyway, yeah, it's a similar idea where George is really reusing this motif over and over and over again, that he wants to have his psychically sensitive characters see the coming battles as the in the future, basically, but give himself the wiggle room to have it be whatever kind of what he wants it to be.
Yeah, like in Melisandre's vision of the black tide crashing over towers, right? Like, which could be literal, could be metaphorical, could be anything, but like that's, well, I personally assume it's Euron doing something at Old Town, and that's like blood or this horrible whatever he summoned. He sacrificed like 3 monsters on the field to like summon a very powerful.
Did you just Yu-Gi-Oh this podcast?
Yeah, to summon like a very powerful 9-star monster with like 3,500 attack. But no, but I mean, I think the point is that these could be literal, they could be metaphorical, and it is, like you said, these big losses of life that can kind of seem to echo outwards. And it makes sense that Bran, being at like the most powerful antenna in the magic world, might pick up on some of these wavelengths on his pirate radio.
With Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Rest in peace. Yeah.
R.I.P.
All right, so while we're talking about theories, recently, Reddit user Braden I guess I don't know him. Anyway, he seemed to have ripped off something from another subreddit.
Sorry, I'm only gonna call him Braden Bufish.
just reading what I see here.
Sounds like a surfer dude. Braden Bufish.
But basically, the theme of this post, and we've done it before, and it's great to get people involved, is that a user will write just a theory or an idea, and you simply respond with agree or disagree. And it's interesting because it gets this one had over, I think, 2,500 comments in it. And it gets everyone talking. You get to see where certain people stand on certain topics. So it's a good way to judge your other users and know who you're going to block and downvote going forward. Because that's what happens.
This is why I lurk.
Exactly. I was downvoting all those Merlin pants constantly.
That's right.
Every time I see them. Because Merlin Pants thinks that Quentin is still alive.
Kim. What?
No.
Yep. Anywho. Brutal. So we thought we were going to talk about a few of the ones that kind of stood out and discuss them amongst ourselves. You guys can listen if you would like or not, listeners. So the first one, and this one is the highest upvoted, is that the High Sparrow is just some dude who got power. And essentially they're saying, this was by user NJ Craycall, and they're saying that the High Sparrow has no real backstory, which is a pretty interesting topic, and I'm going to have to say agree.
That's a strong agree.
Yeah.
Well, what's the most popular follow-up theory is that it's Howland Reed. That's the only one I can think of, and that's
the only. Yeah,
that's vomit-inducing.
Yeah. I'm just gonna go with agree on this one.
Right, and especially because that theory of him being Howland Reed is like based on his hair is styled the same way.
And I think that his feet are muddy. And it's like, Krogmed are walk around in mud, therefore.
Yeah.
Don't mind the fact
racist.
that it's a wholly different religion.
Against Krogmed.
Hashtag true.
I mean, it reminds me of the same... It's like the same, is Benjen Cold Hands. Howland Reed is just one of those characters that I feel like everyone's waiting to resurface in some way. So, anytime that there's, a kind of enigmatic character, it's is that him? And it's no.
Sir Shadrick confirmed.
Right. And also, it takes away from the High Sparrow and what he's doing. If all of a sudden it's it was secretly Howland Reed trying to undermine everything. It's well, no, the whole point of the Sparrows is that it was this natural movement that came about because of what happened during the War of the Five Kings. It's not, there doesn't need to be some sort of tomfoolery going around behind the scenes.
As much as we love tomfoolery on Aswath, though.
Right. Sir Tom of House Foolery.
That's a really good username. Someone should take that.
I know, it's going to be a good alt.
I'm going to start over. Now that everyone knows my old one, I'm going to show up as Sir Tom of House Foolery.
And your first post is going to be how Howland Reed is the High Sparrow.
Yeah. Yep.
And then second is how much you hate the Mudmen.
The Mudmen. Is that what we call them?
Did we?
You can't call them that.
Are we allowed to call? Yeah, you really can't.
I'm sorry.
It's really unfair.
And then all right. So one of the other popular ones is kind of in a similar vein here. Is that Littlefinger's ability as a player is greatly reduced in our eyes because he's always under POVs that suspect him or he's vulnerable to, and that was by user AOW Shadow. So basically,
AO Shadow.
What they're saying is that Littlefinger isn't taken seriously because our characters kind of judge him. And so we're really seeing him through a POV. And so I think it's kind of how George writes it, that he's like kind of a joker. And then you find out, well, no, I just killed a king.
I feel like this is a very reactionary post, comment. And by that I mean reacting to like fan discourse. Like there's this trend where, something isn't that obvious when you read the books. And then once you were kind of in the fandom, you're like, oh, it's super obvious. And then I think some people try to flip it around again. If that makes sense.
I'm sitting here being like, is it commonly believed that Littlefinger is not good at playing the game? He seems very
if anything, it's the other way
at it to me.
All the theories about Littlefinger that we get are basically Littlefinger is actually the Illuminati and one person, where he's in control of everything and he's tuned into everybody. He's got his fingers everywhere.
Rebellion.
Right.
Yeah,
that's right.
And it's
do we think that is also a show discourse leaking in thing, kind of, because Littlefinger in the later seasons was getting played so hard by Sansa?
I suppose.
At all?
Yeah, that could be. That was my Littlefinger voice.
I got it.
Wow. We were rewatching the show to get ready for season 8, and we watched that episode where he says, "And Harrenhal, I suppose, hatch up the table as well." And for months afterwards, I would walk around the house going, "I suppose," and Harrenhal, I suppose, hatch off the table as well.
Yeah, my husband's only Littlefinger impression is him being "Oh, Sansa."
That's a pretty good Littlefinger.
That's dead on right there.
All he says,
Sansa.
"Oh, Sansa." So, anyways, yeah, nice. Littlefinger's good at this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's definitely it's an interesting thing that IO Shadow brings up.
Yeah.
But yeah, it really is. I guess, I mean, like you're saying, Kim, that it's based on the later seasons, without the book and without, with completely changing Sansa's plotline.
Yeah.
It's what are you going to really have him do anyway? Just sitting around Winterfell, twiddling his thumbs. Littlefinger.
Do something with a letter and then completely drop the plot and then not have it do anything after somebody writes an awesome article about it. That's what you're going to do.
Did I do that?
No, that was me.
Oh.
Wow.
I was like, wait, who are we? Who are we subtweeting IRL here?
Yeah.
Just me.
Man.
I wrote an awesome article about how the letter was going to matter and it was going to be a big plot point, and then it didn't. And
maybe it wasn't that awesome of an article.
No, it was that awesome.
I'm just kidding. It was so awesome they had to retcon the show to fix it.
Wow. Well, yeah, that's
to
probably
make
true.
It not a surprise.
Yeah. Shit, Joe Magician cracked it. Change everything.
They reshot everything. Now, if you sort by controversial, this thread is really
fun.
Oh,
boy.
No. Well, there's one more, too, that we have listed here, and then we can talk about more. It's nonstop. There's 2,500. But yes. So this is Val is basically a throwaway character whose tale is growing in the telling, but she has no significant or secret backstory beyond what we know and won't really amount to much. And this was by a star user, all around amazing human being, user Jones Tonai 710 hashtag Jeb Bush GIF, please clap, hashtag. But yeah,
right,
I mean,
Tony
personally,
Jones.
So in case you didn't pick up, I wrote that, and I think Val is George wrote her as Dala's sister, and then now he's like, oh well, she's around, maybe I'll have her do stuff. And there was user Nihilism is nothing said that
nice.
Val is essentially what Dario is for Dany, Val is for Jon. So when Dany will come back all fire and blood, I doubt Dario's gonna die in before Dany gets back. Like
Thank you.
he's under hostage, but he'll come back. Dany's gonna come back all fire and blood. Dario's gonna be like, let's kill everyone. She'll be like, all right, fine. And similar with Jon. Jon's gonna come back as a white or fire white from the dead. And Val, we already know, is like, oh, you see that grayscale child? Axe her. Like, she's not necessarily a good person, but she'll push Jon to do things that he might not have before. And but other than that, I don't think, like, people think she's a secret Stark or agent of the others or a moon singer of the Jogos Nye, or I think there's like crazy theories about her. She's Jon Snow's twin sister is one theory.
Oh God, no, that's Mira Reed.
Right? I know. It's they're both twins.
Fuck me.
It's
so they're
weird.
all triplets.
Yeah, it's not even triplets. It's twins.
It's two twins.
It just, that's how the theory goes.
The one thing that I would maybe disagree on is, like, yeah, I definitely don't think that she has any sort of, like, I'm a secret Stark crazy background thing, but assuming that Jon's show ending matches up with his book ending, I could see her, like, in the show we really only had Tormund for him to, like, be like marching off side by side with into the like wild north, and I could see Val as, like, maybe playing a role into his, like, future of, like, oh, he's, like, gonna return to the wildlings, and she would be a little bit more of a figure there,
definitely.
as opposed to it being Tormund. But
also at the same time, I feel like that's almost too much of a happy ending for Jon. It's like, oh, he gets to go be free with the wildlings and he gets the girl. It's like, I don't know. I think after killing Dan, like, I definitely could see that happening, but I could also see her being dead by that point, and Jon's just, like, wandering the north, sulky Jon.
It definitely would depend on
possible.
how Gurm played it, right? I mean, if Jon shows up and Val's like, hey, Jon, and Jon's like, I really don't want to talk to you. Like,
not right now.
I'm just
I can't wait for Gurm to write that. Hey, what's up, bro?
I've had a fucking day.
You won't believe what I saw. It was actually the Void. Holy shit. Buckle up.
Yeah, exactly. Now, on that subject, I sorted by controversial, and I scrolled past a bunch of the actually offensive ones to user Wild Rose or Wild Rose AA, who posted, controversially, Jon and Sansa will fall in love.
Oh boy.
Which I believe was actually, like, reported, and we had to, like, manually approve this comment.
Oh my God.
Yeah, there's a filter on Johnsa.
We've got to keep an eye on the Johnsa shippers. So what about you guys? Jon and Sansa will fall in love.
I mean, I was never, like, anti-Johnsa. I could have seen it happening in some respect or another. Like, I don't know. My whole thing was that I could never see Sansa ending up with anyone in the end. Like, I think if you're going by history, which obviously George does, there's clear Elizabeth parallels to Sansa. And while Elizabeth had love interests, she was never married or anything. And it's like... So I don't think Sansa... And also, the whole point of Sansa is that she's going to be, like, ultimate pawn to queen story. And it's like, if she's all of a sudden second fiddle to some dude, it just... I don't know. I don't see him going that direction. So that what would inevitably happen if she was with Jon. I think that it'll have something similar, like in the show, where Jon and Sansa are kind of running the north together for a while, trying to get everyone, you know, ready for these ice zombies that are showing up. But I don't see them, like, getting into much of a love interest. There might be, because, I don't know. Like, he was going in that direction with Arya in the letter.
But Ashford Turney, she has to end up with a Targaryen.
I know.
Well, yeah.
That's why it's Dany.
I kind of saw it as, like, a political match if it ever happened, where, like...
Right.
Not even falling in love. They're not even each other's favorite siblings. Clearly the true ship is Jon and Arya. We all know it in our hearts. No?
I love it. No, I don't love it. I really don't.
It's in the pitch letter. Yeah. George loves it.
Yeah. He pitched it, though. That's why it's called a pitch letter.
Bailed on that so hard, though. So, like, obviously, he doesn't love it that much.
This would be a good time to bring up retcons.
So, actually, to roll it to your book for a second, Kim, something that I thought was interesting. that I didn't know about, I guess, in kind of the journey from Benioff and Weiss to making a show was their original like hype letter to HBO.
Oh, yeah.
Where they really kind of like talked it up a lot and
Air horns.
Yeah, a lot of air
Seriously.
horns, a lot of like size 14 like bolded, you know. But I felt like there was a kind of a similarity almost to George's pitch letter, where he's like also way hyping up this thing, maybe in ways he can't quite deliver on, but he is selling it hard.
Yeah, I mean that, and to just like be really narcissistic for a second / not, but like, so like I had to put together a book proposal in order to write my book, which was obviously like a similar thing on a much smaller scale, where like I had to like, I was basically trying to get money to write a thing, and I had to be like, hey, give me your money and I will sell books. And it's like, I had such a hard time writing about myself like that, or like writing with that sort of like a level of confidence, because that's just not, I don't operate from a place of like, oh fuck yeah, this article is gonna be amazing, bro. Like, half the time I hate what I write before I've started writing it, and then I publish it and I'm like, oh god, no one read that. So it was very interesting to me to read that letter, and like, I don't know how they were actually feeling at the time, but like, yeah, what comes off the page is like such a brazen amount of confidence for two dudes who had never written a television show before. Like, never worked on a TV show before, never been hired by anybody to consult on a TV show before. I don't know if they had ever spent a day on a television show set. And here are these two dudes being like, people are gonna lose their fucking minds. This is gonna be the biggest thing since sliced bread. And I'm like, you weren't wrong. But also, like,
Took your shot.
it's like, yeah, I think it does say a lot about those two dudes and the confidence that they had in their storytelling abilities.
I mean, that seeped into some of their scripts when they were like, she's a badass. That's not what bosses do.
Yeah. Well, and that's interesting too, which is that like, yeah, so their pitch letter to HBO was like all like, fuck yeah, air horns, like, give us your money. And then the first version of a script that they wrote was literally like copying and pasting George's book into like script format, and like whole descriptions were like word for word from the prologue and like dialogue and everything. And then that version of the pilot was a disaster, because you can't do, like, that's not how television works. Like, you can't give exposition to a TV audience in the same way that you can in a point of view novel. So they had to learn how to kind of like work their own spin on some of George's stuff. But even in like the first 2 or 3 seasons, like really up until they're at the Red Wedding, their scripts are very like by the book. It's just dialogue, like a little bit of like description, direction here and there. And it's not until like after the Red Wedding, which I think is when the show really blew up in like the audience level. The audience interest changed and more people had eyes on it. And you can tell that they gained even more confidence by being like, oh, now we've really got this. And then that, like from like seasons 4 on, is when all of those little jokes start making their way into the actual script, where they're like, I don't know, calling like John a cockblocker and like all of these like anachronism, like bro phrasing things that are like, you can tell it's just them kind of like really feeling themselves as writers, which again, I cannot relate to.
Right. They got too comfortable, and like, it's like in a series like this, you really can't. It's supposed to be like, I don't know, like I get it, like a lot of people say, and it's true, it's like when you're on a TV in a writer's room like that, you like, not everyone's supposed to see those scripts. You're supposed to kind of these are little notes that people will see if just for the cast and the crew. And so it's like, sure, you can joke around, but at the same time, it's like, does that seep into how they write the characters too then? I mean, look at the intro to this season. It's like Varys and Tyrion cock jokes.
Right. Yeah, and especially by the final season, when we got like another, oh my god, Kit Harington is short joke, I was like, really, guys? Like, are we still doing this?
He's
like,
banging his aunt, but all you're doing is talk about he's short.
Yeah. Yeah. So your mileage may vary on how you feel about that, but it's very interesting to see the evolution of their confidence in themselves.
Yeah, right.
Spike maybe take a hit after the pilot wasn't quite what they thought it was going to be, and then slowly build again to the point where they got to the Red Wedding, and then they were like, "Fuck yeah, we did it."
We made a hit television
I mean, the whole thing they wanted to do was just right to the Red Wedding anyway. That's how they pitched the show. They just wanted to put the Red Wedding on TV and forget about the rest.
Right. Like, they knew that they would, like, convince everyone that they were doing something amazing if they got to the Red Wedding. I think up until then, they were, like, aware that they were on a little bit of maybe shaky ground. Like, we don't know yet if, like, HBO really wants to spend $100 million a season on this or whatever. And then it's like after the Red Wedding was when they basically got a blank check and like free reign to do whatever they wanted.
Yeah, I feel like it's, and I'm going entirely off of my like memories here, so you probably know better than I do, but I feel like it's around that time, like season 4 or 5, when the like narrative that we started hearing from HBO was like we want 15 seasons of this. Like, we want... like, it turned into that, like you said, a blank check. Like, unlimited... Just keep farming the content out of Game of Thrones.
Right.
Yeah, that would boost my confidence, too. If someone was like, hey, do you want to just, like, write shit forever? And we'll give you money no matter what?
Yeah.
Millions of dollars? Yeah, I would do that. Some of these Redditors in this thread should not be paid to write. Under any circumstances. I'm going to shout out one in particular, Abogachi. Abogach. Jon Snow will skin change with patch face and will keep on living in his body.
What?
Once Dany comes to Westeros, he will be able to warg Rhaegal. He spelled that wrong. And then edited 4 days after posting this comment and said, "Oh, skin change for warg. Thanks to the fellow Redditor who pointed that out."
That's the part that was wrong with that?
Yeah.
That's the part he's like, all right, fair enough.
That's my favorite. Jon Snow will skin change with patch face. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's a new one for me.
That was in the pitch letter.
That's
in that blacked out
Yeah.
section.
Exactly.
That censored bit. Also, Jon Snow switches brains with a clown. Is what it says in the pitch letter.
Is he not a clown anyway? Is he not just letting out his inner clown?
Hey.
Jon Snow Defense Squad.
Yeah, that's me.
Form up.
Somewhere.
Gotta maintain my reputation.
Speaking of other users that have things that should not be written, I found one. Actually, this got sent to me because, of course, it did. It was by user Mistu. I'm not sure how to pronounce that.
It French by any chance, or is it?
It
just
might be.
like...
I took French, but that is not really helping me right now.
Okay.
This is actually based on somebody else's post where they said they theorized that Pretty Maris of the Windblown is actually Tyrion Lannister in drag. I gave that one a hard no. I gave that a hard no. No explanation. Get out.
That's a sort by controversial if I've ever seen one. Yikes. That's
it got sent to me from my because my Pretty Maris brand the beauty thing. That was one of my more famous posts, and they were like, "Look, somebody figured out who she is." I'm like, "No, they didn't.
No,
they didn't even come close."
Yes.
Wow, that's a randomly generated theory right there.
Yeah.
Like,
do you feel like that happens sometimes where people there's that bot on Twitter, which is the Song of Ice and Fire discussion bot.
Yeah.
Discourse bot.
Oh, it's so good.
I feel like that's what this was.
I want to go look up what they've been doing. I feel like I might have muted that.
But you have to wonder with like a theory like that, like if that person's being serious, like what's your thought process? Being like, wait a second, I know what
by Jove, I think
Lannisters.
they're like sitting in their smoking jacket in their study,
right?
And
Wow.
they're reading the works of Ovid, and suddenly they set down his metamorphoses, and they go, "Why? I think I'm onto something here."
It all makes sense.
They run to Reddit.
I read the whole thing, the
Dripping
actual
with sweat.
original post, and it is interesting.
The user is like a surgeon, and they were like doing surgery. Oh my god!
I got it.
Like,
It's one of those
no.
theories that starts off with the presumption that a missing character is a very important character.
Okay.
That they're gone, so they're going to come back, and it's going to be really cool when they do. Sometimes George just had, like, it happens with Arthur Dane, happens with Benjen, lots of characters where it's like, no, they're not really dead, they're not really gone, they're going to come back in this, like, super awesome way. And that's kind of what happened here. Somebody clearly thought the Lannister brothers were, it was Tigget and Geryon, because that's the other part of it. They think that the tattered prince, I think, is Tigget.
Tigget. I like that you pronounce it Tigget, like he's from Winnie the Pooh or something.
Is it Tigget? Is that how I pronounce it?
I say Tigget.
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 It's Taijay.
Taijay.
Oh,
Go
yeah,
for
that
the
one
full
is
French. Actually, we kind of talked about this a little bit during our Con of Thrones panel. It's like bad fan theories, where they come from. It's usually that kind of thing where it's like
there's an unanswered question.
Therefore, I will answer it.
Right.
No matter what.
So, like,
no matter
all
the costs.
Theories,
yeah.
that entire thread that we're talking about.
Yeah.
It's just full of those.
Fan theories are fun, but not always right.
Well, there was another similar-ish thread in the sense that it was kind of soliciting some user feedback. But this was posted by Pat Hayden, Pat_Hayden_is_Jesus.
What?
Pat Hayden is Jesus. I don't know. Who's Pat Hayden? Let's
He's
pause the
Jesus.
podcast.
Fine, let's do this right
Obviously.
now. Who's Jesus?
My pen name.
Oh, no. Pat Hayden. Former
he's,
athletic director at the University of Southern California.
Like, can everyone chill out with the sports?
Yeah, this is a lot of football.
But where does he fall into the dragon rankings?
Pat Hayden's pretty low, I would say.
Most
Hayden
important
Axes.
question.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's only 5'11".
What?
What a manlet.
All only 5'11".
What a short king.
I'll be honest, we all could take out the last dragon. Every one of us on this cast could kill that dragon with our bare hands.
Yeah, but would you want to? It'd be so sad. Oh, as
I'm
a
just
boy,
saying-
Hayden had a boyhood paper route and then worked at a shoe store.
Okay, let's
Anyway.
let's move past Hayden.
This was posted by user Pat Hayden is Jesus. And the title of the thread is Funniest or Craziest Line in the Books. And the example that they give in the OP is the realm is at war, his grace has need of every man. Cersei did not intend to squander Tommen's strength, playing wet nurse to sparrows, or... Oh, man.
Yeah,
They're gonna make me read
you
this
started
one.
reading that. That's what you
Yeah,
did.
I did start reading that.
I
Regarding
like that one.
the wrinkled C words of 1,000 sour septas. Yikes. It just keeps getting better.
It gets worse.
Half of them are probably praying for...
Yeah, let's move
Yeah.
past that.
Your sparrows have clubs and axes, let them defend themselves. Why? Oh, man. Why did we approve this one?
That's funny and crazy.
What a wacky thing to say.
Yeah.
I bet these nuns... Yeah, anyway. Well, the rest of the thread is good.
They go in two
Anywho.
directions because some are like pretty. Oh, that's just a funny line, and others are similar to that, where it's like, whoa, somebody actually wrote that, George.
Yep.
He has his moments. He has his moments of writing real crazy things.
The top one, or at least the one that I see at the top, posted by user Jonquil Flowers, is Cersei embraced Marjorie and kissed her cheeks. Lord Tywin did the same, and then Lancel and Sir Kevin. Joffrey received loving kisses from the bride's father and his two new brothers, Loras and Garland. No one seemed in any great rush to kiss Tyrion.
Aww.
What a wacky guy.
It's pretty funny. Is that supposed to be crazy or funny?
Yeah.
My favorite one was from Exodus 33, where it's
Exodius.
the a lovely one. I don't. Do I read this one?
Yeah, read it.
Okay.
You
All right. I
brought
guess
it
I'm reading
up.
this one. I brought it up. Sunset found her squatting in the grass, groaning. Every stool was looser than the one before and smelled fouler. By the time the moon came up, she was shitting brown water. The more she drank, the more she shat. And the more she shat, the thirstier she grew. And her thirst sent her crawling back to the stream, suck up more water. George Railroad Martin.
Chef's kiss. You know he was so happy after he wrote that one.
That's a spicy meatball.
Yeah, that's how he broke the Marinese knot. Sunset
found
her.
Oh my gosh, is that like it's like passing a kidney stone, breaking a Marinese knot? Like it's like a similar. Anyway, writing advice is always to read out loud your writing, right? To notice where you've. So somewhere out there could be a recording of George reading this out loud to himself.
He would not have recorded it.
Someone might have, though, like a clever minion.
Phyllis. He went to Phyllis for that one too. He was like, Phyllis, I put the dragons in. Now, what do you think about this one? What do you think about dysentery?
Real graphic.
You can tell, like, so this prompt was just like funniest or craziest line in the books, and it's like all weird sex shit.
Yeah,
that is.
Sounds about right.
Or offensive sex shit, or literal shit.
Or trebuchets for some reason.
Well, Now,
Rule 34.
Yeah. Now there are some good ones in here though. User Dogrid posted the famous one from Stannis. "I am not without mercy," thundered he who was notoriously without mercy.
Yeah.
Which, that's a nice little.
That's great.
That's some clever writing. It's a little self-aware, but it's okay.
Hot pie looked like hot pie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All Dolores Ed ones are pretty good.
I mean, yeah, we have had many threads that are just post your favorite Dolores Ed quote. This thread was not the laugh a minute fun fest that I thought it was going to be.
This was
No.
That wasn't his
Like-
true name, said Gilly, rocking. We only called him that, Sam and me. His hands were cold as ice, but he saved us from the dead men, him and his ravens, and he brought us here on his elk. His elk, said Bran, wonderstruck. His elk, said Mira, startled. His ravens, said Jojen. Hodor, said Hodor.
That's such good. See, now you wonder why like a moment like that didn't make it verbatim into the show.
Right.
With like a quick cut from each.
Because
each
Cold
person.
Hands was Benjen in the show.
That's
Ben
true.
Hands.
Cold
Ben
Hands
Hands.
Benjen. That's what they called him.
Cold Ben.
Ben Hands.
Ben
Ben
Hands. Yeah. It's like going to Benihana. All right.
So this is another post from the Song of Ice and Fire subreddit, and it was called Cersei's Drinking, very simple name, by user Jad Hyder.
Another USC coach. No, I'm just kidding.
Legendary football coach.
And so basically, this thread was a hashtag nice catch, as the kids are saying these days. And it's from Cersei 7 of A Feast for Crows, and she's basically a crying shoulder for Felice Stokeworth after she tells her husband to try to like beat up Bronn because it's a very smart move right there. And at one point it said that Cersei was talking about drinking, and she said she drank a flagon of wine. And so basically what this user was talking about was how a flagon is actually equal to 1 liter. And I'm pulling up the passage right here. So it's Cersei says, "It's just the wine. I had a flagon with my supper and another with the widow Stokeworth. I had to drink to keep her calm." And so basically what Cersei is
all been
admitting
there.
to here is that like a flagon of wine is essentially 1 liter, and that's slightly more than your actual real-life average bottle of wine, which is about 0.75 liters. So Cersei is basically saying she had about a bottle and a half of wine to herself if you take away what the widow Stokeworth was drinking. And so like you have to sit here and wonder why Cersei is like becoming ever more paranoid and crazy, and she's an alcoholic. And it's just like she's becoming everything that she hated in Robert, but blaming it on everybody else. So it was pretty interesting that, it's a throwaway line, and George uses a lot of that, funky language every now and then, like flagon. And but really, it's like if you look it up, it's a lot.
It's a lot of wine. Yeah, she's really going for it. Do you guys think this is like? Do you think George knows this, or do you think he's?
I have
like,
scientific proof that he doesn't.
Oh,
Hit us.
No, it's
It has to be Tormund's membered.
It's the Tormund's member essay. That was the point, was that George doesn't
Right. That is.
have any scale perception at all.
Well, I definitely like, yes, she's obviously drinking and or drunk, like, most of A Feast for Crows, and that's part of, like, the point, is that she's kind of spiraling. But there is one person who, where were they? Oh, God. I don't like, this person's username is asking for it, 138.
Oh,
Yikes.
Which is a choice.
Maybe they are asking for something.
Sure.
Right.
Let's give them the benefit
We'll leave it
of the
at
doubt.
that. Yeah, that is, yeah.
But they pointed out that, like, so I was a classical studies minor in college, and this person rightfully pointed out that, like, especially in, like, Greek and Roman times, but, like, also kind of in medieval times, like, wine was usually diluted. Like, it's like you didn't, you like, made the wine, and then you would put it in, like, a giant basin or a flagon with water, and that's what was served at dinner time and stuff. So I don't think that, like, she's literally drinking 12 glasses of, like, straight Cabernet from Napa Valley. Like, she's drinking, like, shitty medieval wine that's probably mixed with some water. But it's still a lot. The point still stands. But I don't think it's as much.
Right. Well, and so someone does point out, you know, I feel like it's clear George is at least thinking about it, like how much wine she's drinking, because as user Hotshot1351 points out, if I'm not mistaken, she begins having trouble with her clothes fitting as well, which is kind of meant to be, you know, connecting her to Robert, right? But
Right.
like if you're drinking however many calories worth of wine that is every night, like, and I'm assuming she's not like going to Zumba, like she's not, you know, doing a good workout routine. She's not burning it off. She's like lounging around drinking wine, and then in the evening she has some wine to calm down. So yeah, I mean, like, obviously you're gonna, you know, your dresses might not fit quite as well.
Pleasantly surprised, a bottle of wine is only around 600 calories. I mean, that's better than a Frappuccino.
Wow.
So you're saying drink wine to lose weight?
Well, it's that, like,
Yes.
bad cycle of, like, I mean, I don't know if they had Domino's delivery and expanding, but it's like, you
You
know.
think she was ordering out on Grubhub?
Yeah, like, you drink a lot and then you eat crappy food because you're drunk, and then,
Yep.
like, it's just, in general, the point is clearly that she is not making healthy choices.
Absolutely.
Right.
Both mentally and in her, like, general day-to-day well-being. Like, what she's doing is not good for her or the realm or for literally anyone in her vicinity. So.
Especially not little Tommen.
No.
All he wants is
Poor little
cats
Tommen.
and no
And then
beats.
Sir Pounce by default, apparently.
Yep.
Oh man. Yeah, poor Tommen's gonna install Windows 95 in the books pretty soon.
Oh.
You know what I'm saying? I do wonder, like, do you think it's George writing her as kind of like self-medicating, or is it just like is it decadence, or is it depression?
Both?
Well, she's
mean,
always
both,
drank
yeah.
though. It's not like it's like something new for her though. I think
It does
she's
seem to
No,
be
but I
extreme.
think-
maybe
I
we'll
think
start to
her-
see it more often.
Yeah, I mean, being in her head and, like, witnessing it is definitely part of it, I think, in A Feast
Right.
for Crows. But she's also, like, getting literally drunk on power
Right.
and drunk.
That's
like,
true.
There's something, like, a switch kind of flipped after Joffrey's death, and now that she feels like she's in control, I think that it's, like, an indulgence thing and I literally hate every single person around me and can't be sober around them attitude. Like, she literally says in that quote that this whole post is based on, like, that second flagon was, like, because of her dinner with the fucking
Fleece.
lady
Yeah,
driving her.
it's
there.
hilariously phrased. I had to drink to keep her calm.
Right.
Like, not I had
What does
to
that
get her
mean?
drunk, but I had to drink.
Right.
But,
keep
but
her
that's
Calm
also
down,
part of
Felice.
her.
I mean, Felice, let me pound this.
That's also part of her now ruling. It's like that's part of it is she has to deal with this kind of stuff, so she can be drinking more because like more of this stuff is going to start happening, or she has to go to more small council meetings.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, I have to drink. Everyone else is doing it.
You know, the
Right,
High
or
Sparrow-
like, you know, I have my 10 a.m. meeting, but like I'm just gonna have a nip to like
Just a flagon.
get myself through the morning.
Nip a fireball.
just to take the edge off. Yeah.
Yeah, just a little toot
right.
of diluted wine.
You know, the High Sparrow really should have just like held an intervention for her instead of doing this walk of shame type
Wow.
Yeah, what a jerk.
That would have been a
Yeah.
much
How dare
healthier approach to someone's issues. Just saying.
It's also that, like, her plans that start sounding like drunk people plans. Like, her thing about how she was going to have the ambush where they come out yelling half-man to, like, frame Tyrion for, like, the murder or the attack on...
right.
Tristane.
Yeah, and it's like... That is something that a very drunk person would think was a very good idea.
Yeah,
like,
it's absolutely like a 2 a.m. thought.
Were her plans ever not drunk people plans, though?
It seems
That's a
like
good
they're
point.
really sliding down towards going to, like, White Castle at 2 a.m.
Right.
The White Castle, the Red Keep.
Yeah. She'll gladly eat a bowl of brown. That's all I got. Give me that bowl of brown.
That's really good. That's a good bit. Yeah. Stay with that. Bowl of Brown is the McDonald's of
Of King's Landing.
of King's Landing. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There's gonna be like a Super Size Me style thing, but it's Cannibalize Me because Bowl of Brown is just full of
Oh,
people.
God.
Is it served in a bread bowl by default? Because that would be the drunk version of bowl of brown is a bowl of brown in a bread bowl.
Oh my God, yeah. Ooh, I could go for one of those actually. That's,
A bowl of brown.
yeah, I mean, you know, in a bread bowl though. Like,
Yeah, that's the selling point.
Yeah.
That's, oh my God. I'm also just thinking about that. So, I mean, in the show, they had Euron and Cersei end up hooking up, but in the books, Euron is essentially like a drug addict on Shade of the Evening. When those two collide and these, like, serious substance abuse problems start, like, bouncing up against each other, like, I really want a chapter where Cersei just, like, gives Shade of the Evening a shot.
Well,
And
Yeah.
what her mind comes up with.
well, that's like Victarion. Victarion puts it in his mouth and then spits it out. It's like, imagine we had a Victarion tripping balls chapter.
oh man, he would
Actually
see
sails
everything
the
so
Dothraki Sea.
clearly.
Everything changes. He just, like, goes to live with the what's it called? Where Missandei's from?
Nah,
Not
yeah.
with the
Nah,
butterfly
yeah.
god.
yeah, he just renounces violence.
Right.
And, yeah, I think he would actually. You're right. He would probably have like kind of a like hippie style freak out and
Right.
like then renounce violence and Victorian. Yeah, so it'd be interesting to see what Cersei would do on hallucinogens. That sounds super fun.
That's the POV chapter we need.
Come on, George.
Also, a random thought. Do you ever think it's weird that, given George's background, that there's no real, like, hippies in A Song of Ice and Fire? Like,
The sparrows kind of.
kind
I
of.
think
It's like, there's, like,
maybe shades of it. Like, look at the Quiet Isle. They're kind of like,
that's like the closest you get, but
Right.
they're, like, super religious. There's
Exactly.
He's not inserting, like, his
Right.
kind of his own background into it, which is
yeah.
I just didn't think it was appropriate.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's him really trying hard to capture like the medieval milieu. You
Yeah.
know?
Right.
And like not peg it to anything current. Like I think hasn't he said that? Like Tolkien was like Tolkien was like clearly doing like an allegory of
Right.
World War One, and he wanted to make something that was like a little more timeless and that people wouldn't feel was like dated or like pointed towards like a specific event, but more about like war and power in general. I think.
Although Tolkien in his intro to Lord of the Rings did write that like he kept getting pissed off when people were like, "Oh, this book's about Hitler." Like, no, it's not like directly like stop
Right.
that.
Please no.
Hey, cut it out, guys. That's what J.R.R. Tolkien sounded like.
I mean, that's
How tall was
dead
J.R.R.
on.
Tolkien?
How tall?
Yeah, was he a manlet?
Well,
Nah.
he wrote about hobbits a lot, so I'm assuming he's pretty short.
Oh, great point.
Short king.
5'9".
Wow.
5'9".
Just a regular
George R. R.
Kit
Martin is only
Harington.
5'6", though. I'm actually
What?
taller than him.
Huh.
Wow. It's like George, you, Kit Harington, Tolkien.
That's
That's a list.
now that is like a great band. I think we could really put together some good music.
You on the marimba?
That's right.
So I just want to give a brief shout out to YouTuber Shadversity, who made an unbelievable 3D model of Winterfell based on inscriptions from the books. Apparently it bothered him very much, the TV show adaptation. And apparently Winterfell in the books is much pointier than I thought. There's a lot of spires on there. But he made a full 3D rendering based on exact tracings from the text. Gave a whole explanation. It's about 40 minutes long. If you haven't looked at this, you really should. It brings Winterfell to life in a way I've kind of never really seen. I kind of sort of mentally assumed that the show version was pretty close.
Right.
And it's like, absolutely not.
If George had done this, he may have realized that 100-foot walls were ridiculous.
And 2 walls, right? There's the inner and the outer wall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I did like the top comment, which is, no wonder they didn't want Bran climbing.
Right.
Which, like, yeah. You look at this Hogwarts-ass castle, and, like, yeah, you really shouldn't be scaling that. No, it's an amazing, like,
Right.
model. It looks fantastic. It looks like it makes me want to, like, play a video game or, like, watch a movie set solely in this castle.
Right.
Like, it so much to explore alone in that.
That's true. Like, if like import this into The Witcher or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, or Team Fortress 2.
Yeah.
Or NFL Mutant League.
Mutant League Football?
Mutant League Football. Yeah.
Bum,
Bum 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 bum.
Bum, bum, bum.
Can we just roll this into a Pirates of the Caribbean podcast? I'd be very happy about that.
Yeah, we're gonna put the R in r/asswap.
Nice.
Is Jack Sparrow Euron? You decide.
I mean, he is.
He's not.
Yeah, that's right. He's not. Now, everyone should go check out Shadiversity's video. It's fantastic.
Good job,
go
Shad.
look at it.
And thanks to Tom Aries for posting it.
Yes, and to Dandrew for emailing it to George R. R. Martin,
Huh.
which is what they said they did in the comments. So, good job. /r/asswaf.
And,
Way to go,
and
everybody.
good job to us for being such great mods.
That's
True.
right.
We allowed this post.
Right.
I wanted to remove it, but I didn't.
Right.
No, I'm just kidding. I don't look at the subreddit.
We don't actually mod anything.
That's right. I'm just a Maester Monthly host. Speaking of Maester Monthly, it's probably about time for us to wrap up this episode of Maester Monthly. We really want to thank you, Kim, for coming on. It's been a blast having you on the podcast.
Thank you for inviting me. This was super fun. You should do it more often.
That's right. Yeah, a semi-monthly football-oriented asswaff podcast featuring Kim Renfro.
The next
really
time I
should
write a book, which will be never.
We really should do the podcast more often.
Yeah, every once in a while.
Once a month?
It's pseudo-monthly. Pseudo-monthly.
Now there's an idea, I say, sitting in my smoking jacket in my lounge chair.
Reading
Yeah, so
Ovid.
when is the next book coming out, Kim?
No.
Just
give us a tease.
No books. No books. No books ever
Good.
again. I'm good.
Yeah, I hope you get to put your feet up and wear a pair of sunglasses and sit on a beach and
Yeah.
sit at the house with the red door and just chill.
I think I will relax when I sell 1,000 books. Then I'll feel
1,000.
I'll feel nice about
Wait,
that.
how many have they sold so far?
According to the numbers that I got a few days ago, 575.
They're in Barnes & Noble. That's why I went to go buy one. They're right there.
I'm one of the 575 people who
Yeah.
own it.
You
That's
are.
awesome.
Thank you.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
Seriously,
Nice.
thank you to anyone who bought it. That is rad. But yeah, go tell your friends. I'm hoping for
That's
a
right.
Christmas push. I feel like
Mhm.
every person who's forced to participate in a holiday exchange and gets someone, and then they're like, I don't know what to give that person. They're like, this book's on sale on Amazon for $14. I'll buy that.
No, really. I mean, but the thing is, it is a good guide to anyone who's kind of interested in the behind the scenes of Game of Thrones, and not that I feel like the not connection to HBO actually kind of benefits it in some ways because it's a fan project. It's a project that comes from you, not from what HBO is trying to necessarily communicate about the show, but from really what the fan zeitgeist is saying. So
Yeah.
it's a
Thank
cool
you.
project.
Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Buy Kim's book.
That's right. I don't know if we're allowed to say that on the podcast, but we probably are, and no one listens to it anyway, so it's fine.
Okay. Well, you don't have to say it. I will ask people. No, not even asking. I will just let you know if you would like to purchase my book.
No, demand it.
You
Demand
can
it. Take
do
it.
so. it at most bookstores. I'm pretty sure if you call any bookstore and tell them that you want to buy it, they will order it for you, but it should be in a lot of bookstores on its own anyways, hopefully. It's also an audiobook, which is pretty cool. Like, I didn't
we
think
forgot to talk about that.
Yeah, like I didn't know if they were gonna do that, and then they did. So you can like listen to it on Audible if you have an Audible account, and you get your like one free book a month. You can use it on my book.
But there is, before, I know we just wrapped up, but we're still wrapping up. There is this kind of a success story, or a wonderful story. The woman who read the audiobook, who's just an awesome person, and she's done a lot of other like fantasy audiobooks and stuff as well, right? Brandon Sanderson and some other stuff. But
Kate
Redding, yes. Which
I pronounce as reading, just because I
was
think
gonna say
it's a lot more ironic / amazing if your name is Kate Reading and you read books for a living. But she's British, so she does probably pronounce it Reading.
That'd be like if my last name was like Michael sits at work and pretends to work, but is actually on Reddit all daying.
I was about to say Michael Assloff.
I'm legally changing my name to that. But speaking of Aswaff, obviously on the audiobook, she doesn't necessarily pronounce it the correct way, which is fine. Like, a lot of people don't know. But so we made a joke about this on Twitter, and she replied, and she was very open to pronouncing the subreddit's name Aswaff in the future.
Yeah, I was worried she like wasn't gonna understand the like trolling nature of everyone's tweets, and for a second I was like, oh my god, please don't like hurt her feelings, you guys. She didn't get this wrong, it's not her fault. If anything, it's my fault for not being like, make sure you say Aswaff. She was a great sport about it. And didn't she come up with like the hashtag pairing of like a peach and a pound sign?
Yes.
So yeah,
that's right.
You heard it here first. Peach and pound sign / the hashtag emoji. Is, I mean, she wanted that to be the waffle, but so.
Yeah, not only did she like dig the pronunciation, but she was vibing with the whole ass waffle joke. Like, it's really
ass
fantastic.
Like butt, waffle like waffle.
Mine and Michael's joke about the way to pronounce A Song of Ice and Fire is going much further than I ever thought.
It's really just, it's crossing continents now. It's bringing people together. Yeah. So she's a delight. So you can listen to her read the book and not ever say the word Aswaff. But now you know, in her heart, she's thinking about it.
Yeah, right. For volume 2.
That's all we really want.
Yeah, second edition rollout.
Second edition. Exactly.
We'll get that.
Well, listen, thank you again, Kim, for coming on. And thank you to everyone for listening. And thank you to all of the like big fucking nerds on the subreddit for continuing to write great and fun and weird stuff for us all to delight in and enjoy as a community. And of course, thank you to George R.R. Martin for writing the books in the first place and that insane pitch letter, which led to all of this nearly 30 years later. So thank you, George. You can find us, as always, on Google Play, iTunes, Stitcher, Acast, most major podcasting platforms. You can actually find us on Spotify now, which is dope. In terms of social media, you can find us on Facebook and on Twitter. I don't think we're on Instagram because we wouldn't fucking post anything there. And of course, you can find us on Reddit. If you do find us on Facebook and Twitter, you are under legal obligation from HBO to smash the MF and like button on all of our posts. I have been Michael, also known as Bookshelfstud.
I have been Matt, also known as Joe Magician.
I have been Andy, also known as Jones Tony.
I've been Walda.
I currently am Kim.
Or Merlin's Pants.